Our dominant thoughts and emotions create the circumstances of our life.
Hi, welcome to the Tarun Stevenson Leadership Channel. I'm your host, Tarun Stevenson, and we are all about helping you lead, communicate, and grow to your full potential. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite podcasting app, don't forget to subscribe and follow so that you can stay up to date with all our latest episodes. All right, here's the latest episode. Let's get into it. Well, hey, everybody, I'm here with Mike Pettigrew, and he's coming in all the way from Ireland, and it's such a pleasure to talk to you today, Mike. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Drew. My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm really excited about our conversation today. As I was just going through some of the topics that you've suggested for our conversation, you talk a lot about goal setting and mindset and attitude and how that affects us. And that's a personal passion of mine, especially with mindset. I love talking about that sort of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Now, Mike is an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and a best-selling author of the book Most Powerful Goal Achievement System in the World. It's been in the top of Amazon personal development charts for 3 years. Is that right? Yeah. Congratulations. That's no mean feat, because that is a competitive niche in the Amazon market. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Is a tough one to stay up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, Mike, why don't we start by just you telling us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into personal development, and how did you get passionate about mindset and goal setting?
Well, Tarun, my journey's been a long one. I started my first business when I was only 15 years of age.
Wow.
And then 10 years later, I started my first real business after I left college. I was an electronic engineer. But I first started my first company in 1987. I built that up over a period of about 14 years, sold it to a multinational in 2001. And I thought I'd taken kind of early retirement. Life often has in store for us things that we cannot possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, 2020 is testament to that, isn't it?
I mean, look, the prerequisite for success is usually failure.
Yes.
Now, as I say, I had a successful business. I sold it. I thought I was at the peak of my success, but little did I know what was about to happen. I made some bad investments, and I trusted people who I should not have trusted.
Yeah. And
to cut a very long, sad, painful story really short, 16 years ago, I lost everything. Our son was born, and I couldn't feed him or my wife or myself. Wow. It was the most frightening year of my life. That year, we lost $250,000. The previous couple of years, another $250,000. And, I remember actually spending my last 10 euros in the entire world. It was just awful. Every morning for that particular year, I'd waken up just wanting to vomit with the fear. It was that bad. I'd literally crawl to the toilet, to the bathroom, and I'd be sitting there for, my terrible stomach problems. The fear was paralyzing. All I can remember is waking up every morning going, oh, no, not another day, not another day. And, prior to this experience, I was really optimistic, really positive. My mindset was pretty good. That created for me wealth. Our mindset is the beginning and end of everything. I've an expression that I use a lot. Our dominant thoughts and emotions create the circumstances of our life. Our dominant thoughts and emotions create the circumstances of our life. Now, that situation, how did I turn it around? Because I assure you I did. Well, it got so bad. As I say, I couldn't take it anymore. I just literally said to the universe, this must change. I will change. Show me what to do. Because I knew that I'd gone from a very positive person to a very pessimistic, negative person, expecting more bad stuff to happen with constant fear. And when you constantly have the same repeated thoughts with strong emotion, you get what you're fearing, you know,
Exactly.
but you can turn that on its head. You can use it in a very positive way. So I got to this point, as I say, I just couldn't take any more. I thought, show me what to do. I'll do anything. Just show me. And it's amazing. Sometimes our desperate prayers are answered. And the very next day, I picked up a book. It was an e-book. It was written over 100 years ago. It was called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Okay. And this book, I mean, obviously the word getting rich jumped out of me. I desperately needed, not just to get rich, I just needed to survive. Yeah. Anyway, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. And this book, a very short book, actually it's the source material for the movie and book The Secret as well.
Okay, yes.
And it was all about gratitude, the power of gratitude. And just reading it, oh my goodness, I saw how far I had slipped mindset-wise. Yeah. So reading about this, you know, gratitude, it acts like a magnet. It draws into our lives all sorts of amazing benefits, coincidences, synchronicities, whereas resentment, fear, complaint pushes all those good things away. So I had to change my dominant thoughts and emotions, and I had to do it very fast. So I decided to do what today I call my crazy gratitude experiment. And I have another book called Unlock Gratitude Now, and it's in that, but it's also in this book as well. Okay. So what's this crazy gratitude experiment? This changed everything. I fully realized before this experience that our thoughts and emotions create our reality. So to change this whole situation, I had to think in a different way and feel in a different way. So reading this book about gratitude, which, you know, the science of getting rich, I decided to do this crazy gratitude experiment. That's what I call it today. Basically, what I did was I would remember a time in the past where I felt sincere, deep gratitude. And I dwell on that memory for a couple of minutes, because it would take a few minutes before, you know, the fear would disappear. But after remembering that experience for a couple of minutes, gratitude started to bubble up. It was a bit difficult at first, but, you know, doing this every 30 minutes of the day, by the end of the first day, our circumstances had not changed, but I had changed. For the first time ever, I was feeling possibility. I was thinking in terms of possibility. My mindset was starting to change. And after a day, I didn't even need to remember that time in the past where I felt gratitude. I could bring it up just by bringing up the memory of the feeling. Right. So, but that was the beginning. Within 3 days, now not everything changed within 3 days, but the coincidences started, the synchronicities. For example, I got a phone call from an old competitor. Now he was looking at me as Mike's the rich guy who sold his business to a multinational. And he said, "Hey, Mike, how's it going? We haven't spoken for 3 years or so, or 4 years. How are things?" And I did not want to answer that question. I said, "Oh, great. How are you? Tell me about your life." Yeah. So I was just so ashamed, you know, of what I'd done. And he told me something that changed my life. He said, "Oh, Mike, I'm getting so much business these days from Google ads." I said, "What are Google ads?" This is very beginning of Google ads. He said, "You know those little square ads down the right-hand side of the search results?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm getting so much business from that." I said, "Really?" That conversation has totally changed my life. Wow. Now I have a very successful marketing company. I spend $5,000 or $6,000 a day on Google ads, Facebook ads, and Bing, and all. That conversation, that synchronicity, that coincidence changed my life. I now have a very successful, couple of businesses. But I'm not saying the entire situation changed instantly. It did not. But the positive coincidences started again. So I am utterly, utterly convinced that my dominant thoughts and emotions create my life, my circumstances, and my opportunities and missed opportunities. And I'm convinced about the same for you, Tarun, and every when everyone else in the world, I call you Tarun there, Tarun, everyone else in the world, you know, I'm absolutely certain of this. And this is the why I wrote this book, because most people are literally caught up in, they're victims of their own thoughts and emotions. And that is the biggest thing that stops people achieving what they want in life. Their mindset, how they feel, and how they think. And a lot of, there are a lot of goal achievement systems out there. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are abysmally bad. But irrespective of what goal system people use, or maybe they don't use any system at all and they do it haphazardly, irrespective of all that, how we think and how we think is the most important factor. And I ask any kid, ask any child or any teenager, what do you want to do when you grow up? Their eyes light up and they tell you with absolute confidence, this is what I'm going to do. And then what happens is we leave school, we maybe go to college and university, and things, good things, bad things, but life is not as easy as we thought. And by the time most people reach their 30s, they've had the hell kicked out of them. They've had so many negative experiences, like relationships going wrong, careers that don't quite go the way they wanted. And people close down their belief in what's possible. They stop dreaming. They start settling for second best or even fifth best. And that is the saddest thing, that can afflict human beings. And not just difficult experiences, conditioning. We're conditioned from the time we're born. You can't do this, you can't do that, don't dream too big. I remember hearing this saying, and I think it's awful. I've heard so many people saying it. Don't get your hopes up too much. That's the most damaging statement to a kid. Don't get your hopes up too much. And I've heard it myself, as a kid, and I've heard so many people, so many parents saying it. Okay, it comes from love. You don't want your kid to be too disappointed. But implanting that thought, it can wreck lives, So to get back to the point where we can start dreaming again, start planning big things, it's so important. I ask so many people, in fact, I ask everyone. I haven't asked you yet, but what I ask everyone, what do you want to achieve in your life? What do you want to have achieved by the time you leave this world? Most people, blank expression, glaze look, I'm not so sure. The most important thing we can do is get clear on what we want. You might think, I'm not clear. I don't know what I want. If we just get a pen and a piece of paper and spend 30 minutes brainstorming all the things we would like to achieve at some point, we can cross off half of them later, no problem, if they're not that important. But just to get clarity on what we'd like to do if everything were possible, just pretending if everything were possible. So getting to that point of clarity is the number one starting point.
So good. I'm just going to pause you there for a minute, Mike, because I want to just dig into a little bit of what you're saying about how negativity can really close people down. And one of the saddest things I'm observing now with younger people, say in their 20s and teenagers today, it's like they've been fed a steady diet of negativity by the media, by pop culture. And so many of them are going through even school with no dreams at all. It's that they've got this victim mindset, is that the world is against me. I can't do anything. I can't buy a house. I can't, and somebody somewhere, or the voice of pop culture has told them that life's too hard. And so many of them have given up and they've become resentful and angry. And when I listen to some of these guys on social media, they're just ranting about the state of the world or the state of politics. I think to myself, how sad it is that you think your success is dependent on some politician or some, other person in power. It's really devastating.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, Tarun. I think that conditioning has always existed. It was just done in different ways before. Now it's done through social media. Now, I think, isn't there there's a saying in advertising, everybody, but every day see something like 14,000 different ads, of some shape or form. We're bombarded all of the time on what we should think and how we should feel and how we should look and how we should behave and what we should expect. And social media, in many ways, it's great, but it's also it's killing people's ability to think for themselves. And it's extremely dangerous in many different ways. It's just flicking through. It's an addiction, but I think the greatest gift we have lies between our ears. And I honestly, now there's this saying that we only use about 10% of our brain, probably a lot less, particularly now. And people's attention span has become so short. It's instant gratification. It's instant. But you know what? There's also, even we can get very negative about this. There's a lot of negative stuff out there. But remember, just a few months ago, our son, he's 16. He came into my office and said, "Dad, I got to tell you this." I said, "What?" He said, lockdown and COVID-19 for me has been fantastic. I said, "Really? Tell me more." He said, "Look, all that time we couldn't go to school." He said, I've discovered my passion for learning. Not school stuff, but I love learning. I nearly cried, Tarun. I nearly cried because that is the door that has opened. It has opened to all possibility. People close down. People get desensitized. They stop thinking. I remember back in the 90s, late 90s, I heard this really worrying statistic about people in the US, people who leave school, kids who leave school. And that's probably the same in other countries, I'm sure it is. Something like 90% of people who, once they leave school, they never read another book for the rest of their lives.
Wow. Yeah.
That is horrendous. Now, we live, even though COVID-19 absolutely exists, I'll give you lots of personal experiences about that, really awful stuff, but incredibly good things have come from it as well. The world's businesses have been forced to at least test at home working. And that is working very well. Happy staff, happy business, and that can reduce 3 hours behind the wheel every day commuting to work. And, sometimes the world has to be forced in a certain direction. But we live now at a time in history where there are more opportunities than any other time in human history. And you might think, what? But lockdown, I can barely get food. These things exist, absolutely. But there is an amazing way to educate oneself. Back in the early days of business, I never picked up a business book. Even though I had a successful business, I thought business books are boring. Where did I get that from? After losing everything and after building it back, I've discovered very clearly the fastest way to transform our lives, the fastest way to become successful is to learn from a mentor or mentors, people who've already achieved great things. Because you know what? We don't have enough time, hours, weeks, months, or years in a life to learn it all through our own trial and error. Now, my first business was successful through trial and error. Oh my goodness, there's a much faster way. I spend a fortune on my own self-education now because there's a very big difference between working smart and working hard. We can work very, very hard and trial and error, and we might get there with a bit of persistence. But learning from, I mean, one website that springs to mind is udemy.com. You know, one of many, many websites where you can literally learn any new career very quickly, very quickly. And, you know, I have a marketing company here in Ireland, and we specialize in financial services. We actually generate leads for most of the insurance companies in Ireland. We help the insurance companies get new clients. And back at the beginning of the year, back in, what was it, March? You know, the end of March, when we were in our first lockdown, I was speaking with my clients, you know, some of them, and some would say, some of the bigger ones would say, oh, Mike, we're just waiting to see what happens. And others were saying, oh, Mike, we're doing our damnedest to find out what opportunities exist that didn't exist before. The way the two mindsets, one company has become huge, the other one has less, about a quarter of the staff that he had before.
It's incredible. I've seen that with small business. I've seen that with small businesses as well through COVID. You know, some of them have pivoted, they've reinvented themselves, and they've just gone on to greater and greater success. And like your son, you know, they're saying COVID-19 has been the best thing that's happened to them. And yet, yeah, others have been devastated, and that's not to minimize their experience. But I think you're right. It's the attitude that you go into these experiences with that really determines the outcome you have on the other side. I remember finishing my last of an 18 workshop tour, and I flew back into my home city, and just as they were announcing lockdown in Brisbane, and all these planes were parking. I'd never seen it before, hundreds of planes all parking, and I thought, you know, something's different here, something's going to change. And straight away I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do if I can't be on the road, which is my business? If I'm not in front of people, how do I make this business work? And, you know, just had to reinvent myself, had to find ways to be on. This podcast came out of that experience, you know, and so, like you say, I think if you become somebody that approaches these challenges with a mindset of, okay, where are the opportunities? What can I actually do that I haven't done before? And you approach it with an attitude of gratitude, those doors open up to you. And funnily enough, through that experience, just as my business was slowing down, you know, I started attending a church that had to close its doors. And they said to me, do you know anything about online church services? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do everything online. And so I ended up helping them, and they invited me to join their leadership team and start working with them. And so right through COVID, I've been working with the church in, you know, their digital space and helping them to adapt as well. And so, like you say, if you just keep that open mindset of opportunity and gratitude, the opportunities present themselves. I find you don't have to go looking very far if you've got a mindset that says, hey, how can we take advantage of this situation?
So true, Tarun. And you know, we might be under the impression that we have to drastically change everything really, really fast, you know, and that can be then overwhelming. So we don't even get started. And that's what stops most people achieving their goals. They write down their goal and they look at it and think, oh gosh, where do I start? You know, all we need to do is take the first step.
Good.
And you know what? When we take that first step, even if it's educating ourselves or whatever, the next step will appear. And then the next step will appear. Rome wasn't built in a day. The most extraordinary businesses all started brick by brick by brick, you know? And that is, I think most people just don't see that. They don't see that the most extraordinary things can happen from just consistent small movements forward. That movement forward, that energetic forward thrust, it's like it magnetizes to itself all sorts of possibilities and synchronicities and opportunities, like you said. I mean, there's the experience, or the saying, God helps those who help themselves, you know, or the universe supports those who are clear and who make effort, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a total believer in cause and effect. You know, you make a cause and there will be an effect.
Yeah.
Make another cause, there will be an effect. And it's just the beginning. Getting this started is what stops so many people. But irrespective of what goal achievement system we use, as I said earlier, our limiting beliefs, our conditioning, if we don't address that at some point, what is possible for us may never happen.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Go for it.
In this book, and actually I'm giving a copy, a free downloadable copy to all of your audience.
Great.
There's a very simple exercise in this, how to root out limiting beliefs in any area of your life, whether it's finances, whether it's career, whether it's relationships. Root them out, find out what they are, see them really clearly, and then overcome them, erase them. You think, how can that be? Because I give you an example. A lot of people have all sorts of, I have all these triggers that I do high performance techniques, and I have triggers to, you know, bring up energy and tap and qigong and breathing, and then I go back to my work 2 minutes later with a lot more energy. I was one of those reminders, so I won't do it. But okay. You know, this simple exercise, you know, say for example, you every month, the end of each month, you're broke. You're just barely paying the bills, and that's been going on for ages, years maybe. Obviously, in that sort of case, it's highly likely you have limiting beliefs surrounding money. That's why you don't have wealth. So how do you find those limiting beliefs around money? You'd be amazed at the thoughts people have about wealth, the negative thoughts. It's often things that they've heard their parents say. It's things that society says. I'll give you an example. As I say, this technique is in this, and it goes into it in detail. Very simple, very quick technique. But basically, you write out on a piece of paper, and then you read it out loud. I can't, in this case, become rich, or it could be, I can't have a happy relationship if it's relationships that but whatever area of, you can apply this to any area of life. But here we're talking about riches and wealth. So you write down, I can't become rich because, and you say it out loud, and you write down the first thing that comes into your mind. You've got to do this part of the exercise really fast, because you want those instant responses that are coming from your subconscious mind.
So good.
Now, if you do this fast and you do this 10 times, I can't become rich because, and then you write down the first thing that comes into your mind. You don't analyze it, you don't think about it, you just write it down. And if you do this fast, you will be coming up with your subconscious responses. And you will be amazed the sort of responses that people have. I can't become rich because money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. If I was rich, everybody'd hate me, you know, all these negative thoughts. And then you grade between 1 and 10, each of your 10 responses, and you find those with the highest emotional charge. The ones that may not understand why, but there's some strong emotional attachment to them. The ones that don't really, you've no feeling, you can cross them off. So you're left with 4 limiting beliefs surrounding money that are definitely affecting you. So then the next part of the exercise is to, and this is where you do this part slowly. You come up with positive, opposing beliefs to the ones you've written. For example, I can't become rich because money doesn't grow on trees. You flip that on its head. I can become rich because I live in a universe of abundance. And there's more than enough to go around, something like that. I can't become rich because rich people are greedy. I can become rich because rich people are generous, which is usually the case actually, and so am I, you know. So you flip things on their head, and once again you whittle it down, and you then convert your positive responses into affirmations. Now, affirmations are an incredibly powerful way They are just simply positive, empowering statements you make to yourself morning and evening, aloud with emotion. This is the language of the subconscious mind. Repetition plus emotion. Repetition plus emotion. This is how we become conditioned by everyone and everything that says anything to us. If we hear the same thing again and again and again, and there's an emotional response, we start to believe it. Yeah. You know, so it's also the way to counteract it by introducing new positive thoughts and with emotion and repeating it regularly. And this may sound idiotically simplistic, but this little technique, honestly, changes lives. It changes the future. It changes the realm of possibility. What was once impossible suddenly becomes possible. It's like the doors, big, thick oak doors that have been closed for centuries are finally opened, and brilliant light on the other side. Anything becomes possible. So, you know, it's amazing how often the simplest things, the simplest tools are the most effective, you know?
Would you say that this is why most people fail to achieve their goals? You know, we're at the beginning of the year. A lot of people have made New Year's resolutions, and statistics say that 80% of them will abandon their New Year's resolutions by week 3 of January. And, you know, what you're describing here is really digging down to the motivation or what drives you when you're going after something, or the blockages, internal blockages that stop you. And it's a lot of the time New Year's resolutions are, I want to do this, but we never take the time to delve beneath the surface and challenge the mindsets or the attitudes that may prevent us. Talk to us more about the reasons why people fail to succeed or fail to achieve their goals.
Well, Tarun, I'm a big believer of minimum effort, maximum result. And usually what most people do is massive effort, minimal result, you know? So there are little strategies, tools, and techniques that can move the needle the most. And that's, I believe, it's my mission to share with people those little things that can make the biggest difference. And at the beginning of the year, it's so sad. A lot of people have really sincere desire and motivation to change their lives. But firstly, I think most people don't strategize anything. They just write their goals down. They might look at them occasionally, but they don't actually start taking little baby steps. And that's all it takes, baby steps, you know. And if you watch a baby, a toddler learning to walk, it takes a few steps and it falls down. And it doesn't then sit on the floor with his arms full thinking, I'm never going to learn how to walk, so I'm not going to bother. No, that toddler gets up again, takes a few more steps and falls down again. Picks themselves up, walks it, and over time, over a short period of time, that little toddler can walk. But this is the thing. Most people give up at the first hurdle, the first stumbling point. Very few people go on to the second or third hurdle. Very few people go on to the fourth and fifth hurdle. Now, there are always hurdles. Whenever we align our life in a certain new direction, there will always be, it's almost like, you know, the understanding in science, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I push against the wall pushes back with equal force. Whenever we have a forward momentum in life, we'll always encounter resistance. It's the air resistance that enables the aircraft to take off. Okay, so it's like we invoke from the universe challenges the moment we set a goal. Most people will give up at those challenges. But if you study the lives of the world's most effective people, the world's most successful people, people who have changed the world, and I've spent my whole life doing this, you'll find they have one thing that, well, they have many things in common, but one of those things is that their persistence. They refuse to give up. They refuse. And, you know, I remember Thomas Edison. he was interviewed once. Whether he was a nice guy or not, I don't know. I think he stole a lot of people's ideas, but I think he still had a lot of genius. But
sure.
Thomas Edison, it took him 10,000 attempts to create the incandescent light bulb. The result was our homes in the world were lit for the first time and had been for over 100 years. So irrespective of whether he was a nice guy or not such a nice guy, we owe a lot of gratitude to Thomas Edison. And a guy was interviewing him, a reporter interviewed him once and said, look, 10,000 attempts, that sounds mad. Why would you even bother? And he said, oh, I wasn't discouraged at all, because every time I tried a new way to get the incandescent light bulb to work and it didn't, he said, I knew I could cross off another way that did not work, and it was that much closer to my target. Now, very few of us have the persistence to go 10,000 attempts. But, not giving up is the core of everything. It's the core of everything. At first, it's difficult. It's like exercising a muscle. It hurts like hell at first, but after a while, you become quite strong. And resilience doesn't come from trying something, having a setback and running away. Just enough resilience to pick oneself up and just try again. And that testing, I'm a big believer in testing. I do not believe in blind faith, because our belief can be correct or it can be inaccurate. I believe in testing and getting proof. And my system is all about getting proof, getting little wins from the beginning. If you set a small goal and you use this system and you test it and you get results, you go, maybe the system's working. Maybe I'm working. And then you go for a little bit bigger goal, and you can do this quite quickly over a couple of months. You get really big stuff in a couple of months. But once your belief in your own ability increases, the doors to possibility are just flung open. An example, when I was a teenager, I think I've gone all blurry there. It's okay, autofocus has kicked in. As a teenager, I had asthma as a kid, and I couldn't run 100 yards because if I did, I'd be coughing and wheezing and fighting for breath. So nobody wanted me on their sports team. I still had to play sports, unfortunately. And they would argue over not having me. Oh, we had Pettigrew last week. He's useless. No, you take him this week. It's not very nice to be told the whole time you're useless and nobody wants you. Because it affects other areas of your life too, not just sport. If you hear the whole time you're useless, and it causes emotion within you, sadness, then you start to believe it. And I remember going through my teenage years and even into my early 20s, believing I was useless at everything. And when you believe you're useless at everything, you are useless at everything.
So true.
And I remember, my first really big experience in business. It was 1990, I think. I'd been in business 3 years at the time. Financial roller coaster, like most businesses in the beginning, feast or famine. And I suddenly discovered, I don't know how I didn't see this, probably negligence, but I suddenly discovered I owed our suppliers 3 times more than was coming in from our clients in the next 2 months. That's the end, And I was thinking, I'll just have to fold up the business. And then I thought, no, if I do that, I've just wasted 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears. So I thought, what last ditch attempt could I do to change the whole situation around? Now, very interesting thing, around about that same period of time, I started having a lot more experiences showing me that I have very low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-value. And I was thinking about these experiences back at school. We don't want Pettigrew, he's useless. I was thinking, could that be this low self-worth? Could it be why I'm on a financial roller coaster related to, we don't want Pettigrew, he's useless? And I decided to last ditch attempt to transform self-worth, because it really seemed to be the core of why this was happening. So I did a few different things to appreciate myself more, just little things, reward myself once a week with something special, just silly little things, but appreciating myself more. But what the biggest thing I did was I doubled my prices to my clients. And I expected to lose 3/4 of them. But even if I did, well, I was still a bit better off. I'd only have to do about 1/3 of the work for 3 times the money. And every single one of my clients, I think I had about 50 then. My company was renting tropical plants to offices, banks and shopping centers, and that sort of thing. And I had staff going around in vans, watering them and cleaning them. So actually, I only had one staff then, one member of staff back then. But doubling my prices. Every single client said yes. Every single client said yes. In fact, 2 of them said to my face, Mike, we couldn't understand why you gave such a great service and you never asked us for payment and you're always charging us almost nothing. We couldn't understand this. Talk about coming from the horse's mouth. 6 months later, that business was doing phenomenally well.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I think it was the first Gulf War was at 92, and I thought, there were companies in Ireland going bust all over the place, mainly advertising companies, printing companies, a few other. I thought this is the end for me. That was the best year I ever had.
Yeah, right.
And as I say, I sold that company to a multinational a few years later, all because I changed my self-worth. I became aware of the things that were holding me back. Yeah. And it was completely and utterly in here.
Yeah. You're so right. That whole attitude, when you talk about money, and if you've never grown up with money, you can often have this real blockage to, I don't know that it's right for me to charge that much. I really struggled when I first became a coach, pricing myself fairly, because I didn't think that people would pay for my expertise. I thought, who am I to charge that? And I had to really work through my mindset. And, one day I started asking around about what other contemporaries were charging for consulting and training. And I was staggered. I couldn't believe it. I thought I could never charge that. And so I said, well, what if I charge half of what they charge? I'll see if anybody pays it. Even then it was a lot of money, and I put it out there, and then I had people saying, oh yeah, absolutely, we'll pay that. I'm like, hang on a second, we might be able to pay. And so I think it took me about 3 years to get to a point where I was happy with what I was charging, because every year I would just incrementally bump that amount up again, because I was so scared that, people would say, oh, too much, we can't pay it. But every year I'd bump it up another $1,000 or something like that. And then they'd come back and say, yep, we'll book you again. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And so when I think about what I used to charge when I was first started training, probably about 5 years ago, and I've probably tripled my price now.
Wonderful.
And, and I'm still not at the high end of the market. I'm still, quite competitive compared to many other businesses. And so you're right. Sometimes the blockage is all up here, and you've just got to get to the point where you say, you know what, I am worth it. I've put in the effort. I've shown myself as the expert in this industry, and I deserve to be paid for the work that I do. And
definitely.
Tarun,
you've hit on something really important here. It's, in the battle between our conscious beliefs and our subconscious beliefs always win out. So you may think, okay, I'll double my prices. For most people, they subconsciously think, I'm not worth that. I'm still not worth that. I'm not worth that. The subconscious beliefs will jeopardize that. So what you just described is really valuable. You did it gradually, because you stretch your bounds of possibility gradually over a few years. And that, for most people, is the best way forward. Very few people are ready to go from 100,000 a year to $1 million a year. It's just too big of an internal jump. because a huge part of them, their subconscious mind is over 90%, 95% of your mind. That huge part is what the beliefs of your subconscious beliefs always win out.
Yeah.
So doing it gradually is a huge thing. But also, I think becoming really aware of what each hour of our time is worth. Very few people do that. You know, one way of doing that is looking at your annual income, okay, and then breaking that down to an hourly rate. But you know, your hourly income is completely it's completely arbitrary. You know,
it is.
You can feel like a fraud if you suddenly double. You know, thinking, oh gosh, but you know what? I remember it's a bit like the title of this book. I hated the title. I thought it sounded braggy, you know? And a friend of mine who's very famous, he is a New York Times bestseller, and he's been in marketing as long as I have. And he came up with this title. We were brainstorming this 3.5 years ago. And I said, Mark, he said, I've got it. I said, what is it? The most powerful goal achievement system in the world. I said, I hate it. He said, Mike, you got to use it. And we argued in a friendly way for, I'd say, about 2.5 months over the title. He said, look, this will cause intrigue. Yes, there'll be some skepticism. But he said, at the end of the day, make it the best in the world. And he said, look, you've been exploring and studying human consciousness and the mind all your life.
Yeah.
He said, you know all the systems out there. You know, Think and Grow Rich and all these different systems that are phenomenal. He said, I know you can bring stuff together that is universally applicable to everyone, but you can also bring in modern neuroscience and stuff we've discovered since Think and Grow Rich 100 years ago was written.
Great.
And I thought, oh my goodness, Mark, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. So my whole life has gone into this. This is my life, in the sense that he put the bar very high, and he gave me something very high to strive to. And I believe it is the best in the world.
That's great.
Because it gives results right from the start. That's what people need. And because it's the only system that I know, the only goal achievement system I know that goes into the subconscious mind, finding limiting beliefs, erasing them, and using the subconscious mind to achieve what we want. Because when you're using your entire mind instead of only this little 5%, the difference is enormous. You know, as I said earlier, my whole life is about minimum effort, maximum result. So good. Yeah. And my mission in life is to inspire and empower people to achieve all their goals as easily as possible. And goal achievement, I know, even back in my early 20s, the words goal achievement would make me shudder. I'd hate the words because I honestly believed I couldn't achieve anything. A bit like those two words, self-discipline. Oh gosh, they weigh you down in the shoulders. Self-discipline, goal achievement, they're horrible words. But why? Because we don't believe it's possible. Because we think it's too hard, that we're going to be, not at all. The biggest things, the biggest businesses in the world, the most extraordinary lives are created through just small tests and seeing the result. Test, get more result. Test a bit more, get a bigger result. And as your confidence grows, your ability to transform your dreams into reality grows dramatically. So the greatest gift we can give any other human being is empowerment.
Yeah. So true. And Mike, I'm resonating with so much of what you're saying. And I'm just thinking of all these moments in my life where this has rung true for me, where I've been able to challenge or address limiting beliefs from my past or my childhood and seen my own experiences change. And so I want to commend Mike's book to anybody that's listening or watching. He's very generously offered a free downloadable copy to us. Mike, tell us what the URL is that we can get it at.
It's achievegoalsfast.com/book. So that's achievegoalsfast.com, all one word,
Yep.
/book. And it's a PDF.
achievegoalsfast.com/book. We're going to put that URL in the description. I recommend you go and grab it. I'm going to have a look at it. I love what you've been saying tonight, Mike, and quite frankly, I'd love to keep on talking. It's been a really enthralling conversation. You're a great storyteller. I could just listen to you talk for hours, I'm sure. But look, Mike, as we come to the close of our conversation today, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners as a parting, I guess, suggestion for moving into 2021? Because so much is still unknown. 2021 hasn't reset like we hoped. We're still dealing with pandemics. We're still dealing with lockdowns. What do you want to say to the listeners about how they can move forward from here?
Great. Well, I think one of the biggest things right now is fear. And, I don't like the acronym false energy appearing real. That's just not valid. And a friend of mine who died some years ago, he had a great analogy or an acronym for fear: friendly energy announcing risk. Okay. So we're in a time now where there's a lot of fear. It is not a guarantee that things will be bad. Yes. No matter what our situation is in life, whether we have lost our job, whether we are locked down at home, even if we cannot see what's going to happen in our careers and livelihood 3 months from now, we have the ability to recreate ourselves right here, right now. It doesn't magically happen overnight, but we are living at a time in human history where we are forced to do things in a different way. Yeah. And all I say is just test what I've been sharing today. Download the book, test. And no matter how fenced in we may appear to be right now, honestly, there are extraordinary possibilities out there. If you look at the businesses throughout the world, yes, the airlines are in terrible crisis. The financial system is messed up. But people who are running online businesses are doing better than they've ever done before, way beyond what they could expect. And you know what? Anyone can work online. A gift to the world is udemy.com, udemy.com. Learn any new career for almost next to nothing. And we can all reinvent ourselves. And also, every day we can start afresh. Every day we get to decide to take a new path and do things slightly different, instead of just relying on the same old way, because the same old way will not work anymore.
You're so right. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk that says we're living in the only time in history where you've ever been able to start and run a business from your phone. And everybody could do something, start something with the internet. And if they've got a computer, there's something you can do out there. My 15-year-old son decided he wanted some extra cash, and he had friends that wanted chewing gum. But they didn't want to go to the supermarket. And so he would go every morning to the supermarket and buy the wholesale packs of gum, and he'd sell them for a profit. And then he decided, hey, there's something in this. And he started buying secondhand PlayStations in thrift shops and then saying, okay, well, maybe somebody might want this, So, there's so much opportunity where if you just look, and if you look for the need and you look to fill somebody's need, you'll be able to create something new for yourself. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Great. If people want to reach out and maybe talk to you more or learn more about what you do, where would they go to find you?
My website, mikepettigrew.com, but you know what? A lot of people can't spell the word Pettigrew, so just achievegoalsfast.com. That will divert automatically. achievegoalsfast.com. And the book is achievegoalsfast.com/book.
All right.
To download it.
Great. We're going to link to that, Mike. Thank you so much for your generous offer of giving us a copy of your book. And thank you so much for talking to us today.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you got a ton of value out of that episode. Don't forget to let us know what you thought in the comments. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover next time, we'd love to hear from you. If you know anyone that would benefit from the content that we produce, please like and share this channel. And we look forward to having you next time on the Tarun Stevenson Leadership Channel.